Good morning. How y'all doing? What a pleasure to be here. My name is Paul Rice. I'm founder and CEO of Fair Trade USA. We are the leading certifier of fair trade products in the United States. And our mission is to support the livelihoods of farmers and farm workers and workers around the world by partnering with great companies like yours and bringing greater transparency and sustainability to supply chain practices. And it is my huge honor and pleasure to introduce you to Hamdi Ulukaya, who is the founder and CEO of Chobani. Hamdi grew up on a dairy farming family, with a dairy farming family in the highlands of Turkey. And he immigrated to the United States as a young man and started Chobani at the age of 35, and it was a rocket ship. In 5 years, they reached $1 billion in sales and became the leading yogurt brand in the world. But Chobani's success has been far more than just commercial. They have been a real example of conscious capitalism, taking care of their workers, paying their workers above market wages, creating a groundbreaking profit-sharing scheme with their workers, providing family benefits to their workers. They've gone above and beyond. And Hamdi personally has been an incredible humanitarian and philanthropist. He's been an outspoken voice for the refugee crisis around the world. He's won more honors and accolades and honorary PhDs than I can even count. And so please join me in giving a warm welcome to Hamdi.
Thank you, Paul. You're a brother. Thank you so much. Good morning to everybody here also. This is my second time. Being in this stage with Paul is a great honor for me. He's a man, I got to know him first time here last year. We met, right?
That's right.
So there's magic happens in this room. So look around you, who's here. And these human connections, just like Tammy said, in split seconds, can lead into certain things. And I think it's extremely important to be present. Like Tammy said, to know where we are and what our mindset is and where we are going and who can help us to get there. And meeting Paul broke all of that, and we'll talk about it a little bit. He talked about my story. I hope one day they make a movie about you. Because what we're talking today about being conscious, being aware of our surroundings, being aware of our society, what's the role of business can play in society, and where we are going as a humanity. It ties into the stories like Paul's when it starts years and years and years ago in the villages of Nicaragua, where someone 20, 30, 40 years later asked Paul, why the hell did you go there for? Wasn't there a war at the time? Were you not afraid that you could get killed? How much did you believe that it's doing good for a kid from California in a young age to go all the way down there and knowing that the humanity is one? You can start in California, you can start in the village of Nicaragua, wherever it is, but the truth is the same. Issues are the same, families are the same, challenges are the same, and solutions are almost the same as well, going into the same humanity first type of approach. So I'm very honored to be with you here, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, Hamdi. Thank you so much. So, you and I, and probably just about everyone in this room, share something, which is that our commitment to leading businesses with purpose probably started through formative experiences that we had at a very young age. And so I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about your life journey and how your story led you to become a values-led business leader.
I'm, just like you said, I grew up in eastern part of Turkey, northeast. I mean, you probably hear these days in the news about the Kurdish topics in the southern border. I'm Kurdish. I'm from the northeast of Turkey. So the Kurds are in different territories. After World War I, the land was divided. So there are Kurds in Syria, there are Kurds in northern Iraq, there are Kurds in eastern Iran, and there are Kurds in western Iran and eastern Turkey. So I was born in the climate like Colorado, mountains, sheep farming. So actually, I don't know the date I was born because the family was coming back from the mountains at the time. So the exposure to the world for us was very simple. You know, we made cheese, we made yogurt, took care of our animals. We had shepherds. We grew up with shepherd stories. And there were no police or judges or anything like that, so there was a social order. And within that, everybody felt safe, even though you had no homes or bankers or police force or anything like that. So I grew up with that kind of environment. The world of business or capitalism or money or whatever that was far, far away. The stars were closer, you know? And so for me, the only thing I knew is we would make cheese and my father would go and sell it somewhere. And that was the only exposure I had. So when I arrived here in the age of 22, I went upstate New York and I started working in a farm because I knew how to do that. And when my father came and said, well, there's no good cheese here, you should make some cheese. And that's how my my exposure to business came.
American cheese sauce.
Yeah.
Let's
So
make some good stuff.
I've never worked anywhere. I did not study business. I had no friends who had done business or entrepreneurs. So my journey at Chobani has been the self-discovery. The only thing I had was my mother died before I started this. So she had this village scarf, and I kept her as memory from her. So I put that under Chobani hat, in my hat, to keep me right, keep me straight, because I felt her teachings were the most important things in my life. So every time I was doing right or wrong, I was asking if my mother would prove this or not. And that was my North Star. Yeah. But what I discovered along the way is this was years later. Like you said, we went from 2007 from 4 employees to $1 billion in sales in 5 years, and we did it independently without raising any money from anywhere else. And had no experience of businesses, or anyone in the team had no experience of businesses. And find out that not knowing that was probably one of the best things that ever happened to us. Because nobody could tell us you can't do it. And nobody could tell us you can't do it this way. Nobody could tell us this never happened before. Nobody could give you, we just, dive in, I guess. But I was, and I'll make this point because it's important, Paul, I was very upset, in a border of anger, that when I came to that factory and I saw the factory workers, that they were closing that factory, and I interacted with the local community a little bit, that a very large company who had billions of money just closed this factory without knowing any of these people or any of their conditions. They just closed it. And we said, we're going to make this work. And here we are.
That's remarkable. And your story about drawing strength and values from your parents, I think, runs across all of us. We've all had formative people in our lives, our parents or others, who really shaped our journey and brought us to do what we do today. This is a gathering of conscious capitalists and business leaders who really bring values into the heart of their business. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how Chobani is an expression of conscious capitalism, how you manifest business with purpose at Chobani.
The other day, a week ago, I think I shared with you, I took New York Times, it was a Wall Street Journal in breakfast time, and there was this big ad, and it was from the Business Roundtable. This large business organization that has hundreds of large organizations. And I'm reading it, and I cannot believe what I'm reading. And it's basically, the ad says, the sole purpose of business is not just make money for its shareholder. The sole purpose of business is to take care of their employees and the communities and create the world, well-being of the world and all that kind of stuff. So wow, this is groundbreaking, amazing. And you come up with the JP Morgan, So I guess 30 years ago, if you said, well, one day these all big companies are going to say this, it would be like, miracle happen. But I think we're coming to a place where this very selfish capitalistic system is no place to go anymore. And even if you hide it under this, this noise and everything else, but there's a conscious consumers out there that they do understand that corporate social responsibility check is not going to cut it anymore. I want you to know how you're doing your product. I want you to know how you're treating your employees. I want you to know what you're doing for all the issues that we're dealing in the world, and how much this income inequality is becoming one of the massive issues in the world. Now, I was not aware of conscious capitalism. This was just human qualities that we all grew up with, and saying, you have to let everyone grow around you. The whole purpose of being here is to help others to get better, right? I mean,
so how does it work at Chobani? How does conscious capitalism manifest itself?
I basically did not have these 4, 5, 6 things that I'm going to do. Like, I started, I saw things, I said we could do something about this. I'll just give you a great example. I had my first son born, and I get exposed to, Chelsea is here. Congratulations, Chelsea, again. She's going to go through this. I saw how hard this experience is. And as soon as I went through this experience, not only for the mother, or for me too, and I went to the office and asked, or our people office, and I said, what's our, pregnancy leave? What is our policy on this? She said, maternity leave. She said, we don't have one. Wow. We don't have one? So the people, they have babies and they just come back to work after 2 weeks? This is inhumane. Now, I didn't know that. Even in my company, we didn't have it. Immediately after, we looked into it, and we realized that 98% of manufacturing companies in this world, in this country, do not have parental leave policy. It's inhumane, it's brutal. So basically, this kind of experiences that you expose, because I didn't know, but one of the number one things, what I said, is how can I make sure everybody in this company can come to this place as who or she is? How can I make sure that they feel home, truly feel home, and they can get their best out of this? And how can I make sure that everyone who involved in this, not only the workers or employees or anyone supply us the milks and ingredients, but everyone in the community can all lift with this? How can I make sure that I am not the owner, I'm just a member of this place, but everybody else has a feeling of membership and ownership of this, including the farmers and contractors and everybody else? So basically, if there's a story is written, or the rules are written, it's written all by everybody who's involved with this. You cannot do it by yourself. It's impossible. And one thing that I realized very early on, you probably realized it a very long time ago, that how powerful business is, how powerful this starting a business and entrepreneurship journey is on people's life. Not in the people who consumes your product, not only people who gets exposed to working or getting some kind of affected by it, but also the community. This whole chain effect is massive. So if it's in the right wave, this chain goes this way. If it's in the wrong wave, it goes into the wrong way. So that's why we see businesses making some bad effects on communities and people, and you see some people like people are here is making a good effect on people's life.
Well, what Chobani has done with and for its employees has been celebrated and applauded. And you've spoken before about how that is not just the right thing to do, but it's also good for business. As Hamdi mentioned earlier, he and I met here at this conference a year ago, right out there in the lobby, and began our conversation and our friendship, and that led to a groundbreaking initiative between Fair Trade USA and Chobani, where we are now developing the world's first fair trade standard for dairy in an effort to support dairy farmers and farm workers in the sector. And we're just incredibly excited about that opportunity to not only engage with one leading company, but through that initiative to really raise the bar on the entire industry and help improve practices industry-wide.
And it's first fair trade in the U.S., right? It's your first initiative
not first
in dairy.
The US.
In dairy.
In dairy. It's
Yes.
first in dairy, exactly. So, Hamdi, perhaps you could just talk a little bit about what led you to see fair trade as useful for Chobani,
right,
and consistent with what you want to do with farmers.
Farmers, especially dairy farmers, is suffering, especially small dairy farmers, family-owned family farmers. There are more family farmers are being closed or shut down or sold than any time in the history of farming in this country. And one farm being suffering means that community is suffering. So that could be related to milk price, that could be all the other things. But the public opinion, like all these farmer lobbies and all that stuff, is not that positive either. These poor farmers, they can't even help themselves on how to communicate things. Now, I come from a farming family, and I worked in a dairy farm in upstate New York for a year and a half. I milked 60 cows, and I exposed to a lot of dairy farmers. These are the finest people. You might not like some of their opinions, view on the world and how we should shape, but when it comes to human quality, these are beautiful, beautiful people. And our main ingredients is milk, right? And it's not a success if we only, grow and celebrate the growth and increase the sales and all that kind of stuff, seeing that the rest is not doing well. So we must be responsible for it. And we've been wondering how we can get involved, and we have been participating in a lot of programs. And it wasn't until the fair trade connection came with you and understand that what you do with the farmers is that picture gets gets completed. So what are the challenges? The challenges are farmers are suffering because the milk prices are low. There's a great concern about animal welfare. And there's a greater concern on farm workers, which fair trade did amazing work on that one. What is the problem with the farm workers? Over 50% of the farm workers in this country, dairy farm workers, I don't know the rest, but at least on the dairy farm workers, are undocumented immigrants. They're illegal, if you say it in a plain English. And if you look at the places that we operate in Idaho and upstate New York, that number is even higher. So imagine in this very stressful environment, you have farm workers are working in the farm, that every penny is extremely important, and the farmers are short on the fundings. What do you think the conditions are? Yeah. Who knows what the conditions are? Yeah. What's the living conditions? What's the education conditions? What kind of wages? What kind of health conditions and all that kind of stuff? So we are in the dark because the conditions are not that great. By nature, I would like to say the farmers will take care of their animals and their workers better than they take them themselves, but let's make sure. And how we can make this better. So when you think about all these animal rights, cares, environment, workers' well-being, and how can we support financially the farms and let them have a little bit extra? And how can we give the consumers, the people out there who are very, very conscious about these topics, and say, fair trade and fair trade-like places who we trust went to farmers with us, and we make sure that all the things that we're concerned about are in the good place and even going to get even better. And this dramatically excited us. It's the first time ever it's been done. We got Cornell University involved. We got some other dairy industries involved. But it couldn't happen without Expertise, trust and knowledge, and understanding of organization like fair trade, which Paul has founded and led it for the years and years and years. Some ideas, we see a lot of marks show up in the products, packaging, and you say, well, this is free, this here and that, mark this, mark that. But truly affecting people's life. Not only ingredients that matters as a physical ingredients, like organics, GMO-free, all that kind of stuff, that's fine. But the emotional ingredients, which is human conditions, environmental conditions, animal conditions, cannot be answered by those type of marks. And to me, those emotional ingredients, as important, if not more important, than those physical ingredients. Because in the end, when we consume that product, when we use those services, we want to know what kind of conditions where that person was in, that farm workers was in, when he was or she was doing that kind of stuff, so when I'm consuming with my family in my home. And that's why, the industry, the brands and company and organization like Fair Trade, when they bring their expertise and knowledge together and go to the farmer and say, this is really good for you. And let's have a coffee and let's make things right together. And that's why magic happens, in my opinion.
Maybe it would be useful to explain to the audience a little bit about how fair trade works. I'm sure you all are familiar with organics and how organics is a standard that farmers comply with and get audited against every year. Fair trade is a very similar approach, but it has not only environmental criteria, it also has labor and social criteria, a 200-point checklist of criteria that farmers meet in order to get audited and certified every year. And those criteria ensure that workers get better wages and get safer working conditions, and that the environment in and around the farms are protected. We now work with over 1,300 brands and retailers here in the United States. We work with over 1 million farmers around the world. And last year alone, we helped those brands channel over $100 million in above-market pricing back to farming communities around the world. And that helps, in turn, improve education and health and housing and clean water and other important community development goals in the community. So for us, fair trade is all about working with great brands like Chobani and Whole Foods, which is a great partner of ours, and other companies to create a more transparent and sustainable and ethical supply chain. So it's really exciting to work with Chobani and to take this model into a whole new industry and raise the bar on practices in that industry. So Hamdi, bold business moves are often rooted in personal experiences. I know that you visit dairy farms a lot in upstate New York and in Idaho, and have had a chance to talk with farmers and with farm workers, and I'm just eager to hear any stories that you might want to share, or your impression of what those farm workers are facing today, and how that motivated you all in this direction.
Yeah, I mean, I was just my home upstate this weekend. Farmers do their things not because they have to. They love it at the same time. Yeah. They're attached to land. They're attached to nature, and in Nicaragua or in Turkey or in Thailand or in upstate New York, it doesn't matter. The farmers, more than anybody else. But the undocumented farm workers, this topic is deep and heavy, and it's big. When I heard that the farmers in Idaho, they do not travel all family together when they go to Walmart or somewhere to shop, simply because you can be caught and you can be deported, right? And I just ask one of them is, how do you feel when you leave from the farm into the pickup truck and come into the store, and knowing that you might never be able to see your family again? How does that feel? And this is a loss of a family every time you go to buy a milk every other day, right? This is the suffering that you're going through. And we all have responsibilities to understand this emotional suffering that people go through to make life better for their families. And this is the legal side, and I think there's a lot of conversation going on around here. But if you go to a farm and you look at places where the farm workers live, and you look at the farmer where he lives or she lives, and you look at it and say, this doesn't look right. At least not in this country, for God's sake. Yeah. It just doesn't look right. And there's enough power of the consumers out there to demand for the brands and companies to look at all the conditions, not by just what kind of bacteria you have on the milk or what kind of grass that cows has been consuming to get that milk, but also the people who got involved in making that product coming to your table is in the good conditions. We have enough power to be able to do that. So, maybe this organization started 10, 15 years ago in conscious capitalism or being more fair. But today, this work really worked. I'm new. You guys have been around and preaching this longer than anyone. Today, I think we have enough power to force companies to do the right thing, not just putting an ad in the paper and say, oh, this is what we believe, and we check the box. It's actually the quality control it. And we have power to celebrate the companies or the brands or the entrepreneurs and organizations doing things right, truly right, by being on their side. And we have power to put the other ones in the garbage can so our children doesn't have to deal with this shit again. We have truly one solution in all the masses that we are dealing with in the world today. We have politicians are failing all over the world. I mean, there are wars. I was just in Colombia, and I saw people crossing from Venezuela to Colombia. Yeah. And I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. Yeah. We're hearing in Syria today, it doesn't make any sense. So there's a shortcoming of the politicians everywhere. UN organizations, God help them. The only thing that we can think of is the businesses that in the right mindset, that has enough power, that has power that is sustainable, that enough people within the organization or outside as followers, that acts in the right way can make a difference in the world for our children. I don't see any other way. Yeah. And the conditions that you put in place long time ago to make sure that the farmer in Nicaragua in a hills that maybe takes 10 hours to get there, the well-being of that farmer is attached to someone who's buying coffee here. Yeah. And if you put that chain in the right place, that person will send his daughter to a school and pay better for his workers and make sure that the environment is protected because somebody is here in Austin cares about it. This thing works. We just have to scale it, and we have to scale it really fast.
Well, I know everyone here shares that perspective that government is not solving our problems for us, well-intentioned NGOs as well, and that really it's the power of business that we need to harness to the task of addressing social and environmental problems. We don't talk much, though, about the consumer, and so my last question is, where do you see the consumer in this whole conscious capitalist movement? What role does the conscious consumer play, or what role could the conscious consumer play in supporting our efforts?
You and I spoke about this before. I think there's two forces that's extremely powerful for making businesses to turn into a right direction. Businesses like started in this room, they already started in the right way these are great. But I think the biggest problem is that all these large businesses that already exist, that already has a lot of power and arms and legs. How do we change those to truly do things right? There's two powerful forces. One is the consumer, and the other one is the workforce. So I think where we are going is consumers are going to demand and say, you have to do things right. Yeah. Not just by the ad, putting on the ad in the paper. I'm going to look at every single thing, and I'm going to ask fair trade or fair trade-like organizations to tell me. I don't know what it is. I mean, Hala is here, I think, from B Corp. Here you are. Organization like that, and say, I want to make sure that you're doing things right. And I'm going to tell people that you're doing this right. Mm-hmm. To the consumers. The second one is people don't want to work for boring companies. People don't want to work for companies who are not conscious about the environment and the people and humanity and the crisis of refugees and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. People want to work places where you're truly contributing to the society and humanity in a positive way. Yeah. And involved in competition, innovation, all these business things that we love. And this is true. This is true. In order to get the talents into your company or in your organization, you have to act certain ways. So between these two places, consumers and the talent, they're looking for the right place to work.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's so much research now about consumers voting with their dollars and really choosing brands that sell products that reflect our values, that sell products that are more socially and environmentally responsible. We see that millennials and Gen Z consumers index particularly high in terms of their expectations of companies and their sustainability practices. So to the extent that we can enlist the power of the consumer, I think we can really support and turbocharge our efforts to create businesses with purpose.
And I think like-minded people and organizations, they have to find a way to work better with each other. Mm. I don't have to invent how to find out well-being of the farm workers in the farm. There's somebody who's done that. We have to bring the knowledge and resources together. And not only organizations and the company, we must, like-minded companies, we must get together and collaborate more and open our walls more so we can learn from each other. Because every one of us, if we succeed in the right direction, that's the way that we can turn this around faster for our children.
So Hamdi, sadly we're out of time. I see my brother Walter Robb over there waiting in the wings, who's about to come on. I just want to share one last thought with our tribe here this morning. And it's about the purpose of this gathering and the opportunity of this gathering. I think so many of us come here, especially in our first year, to listen and to learn and to hear the experiences and the stories of other conscious capitalists, to hear and learn and get some insight into how we can take these ideas back to our own businesses. And all too often, perhaps we miss the opportunity to plant a seed, the seed of a new partnership. Hamdi and I met here a year ago, and today we're in the process of launching something that's never been done before, implementing the fair trade standard in the dairy industry. And this was fertile ground for that seed. And so my reflection to you all today is that we are all, without exception, both dreamers and doers. We are dreamers and doers, and this is a place where doers can make common cause with each other. Think about that your next powerful partner might be sitting right next to you. And I firmly believe that working together, we're able to dramatically grow our impact beyond what we could do alone. So that's my challenge to you all, to use this place as an opportunity to find partnerships and to grow your impact. Thank you to all of you. Thank you, Hamdi.